Thunderbirds fans. Those are words that, man, we have been dying to say those words over the course of the last few months. Happy to have you here along with us for this Thunderbird Thursday Town Hall. I'm Ryan Smith, voice of your T-Birds, remotely on this night, joined by T-Birds president Nate Costa, and we want to welcome to the organization formally for the first time our new Springfield Thunderbirds general manager, St. Louis Blues assistant general manager, Kevin Mcdonald. So, Kevin, welcome to the Springfield Thunderbirds family, and we look forward to hearing a lot more about the product that we're going to see on the ice, whenever that may be. But first and foremost, we are well aware, and we would be remiss not to begin the night by letting our president, Nate Costa, have a chance to speak to all of you. We know there are a lot of questions, and with the way the world has been over the course of the last 7 months or so, there are a lot of questions that we all have, frankly. And so I'm going to hand the floor over to Nate to kind of give some opening remarks as we begin the town hall.
Thanks, Ryan. It's good to be talking hockey again. Obviously, normally we'd be celebrating the start of our season here. We actually would have been starting the season here this past week. So it's a little bit weird for me personally, being in the business for over 10 plus years and not actually working during this time, especially being in the hockey world. It's a bit odd, but I wanted to thank all of our fans. We wanted to do something to, we've been going back and forth with the group that we have here about what we can do. And obviously with what's going on in the world, it's been a bit challenging for us to try to host any type of event since March. I'm really thankful for all your guys' patience and support over the past couple of months. Our ticket holders have stepped up big time, and we really appreciate the patience. Obviously, we haven't had a lot of control over what's gone on since March, but the response to everything, especially for the upcoming season, has been really good. And we really appreciate the support of all the fans. And we really look forward to inviting you back into the Mass Mutual Center when we can do it. We can do it safely. There's been a lot that's gone on over the last few months. We've gotten a ton of questions, and I want to try to answer as many of those as possible. There's still a lot that's up in the air, but we wanted to at least try to provide some updates to all of you in terms of what the potential season could look like. And then also, obviously, as Ryan had just said, welcoming Kevin and the entire St. Louis Blues organization to our little family as well. Just going through the draft and the free agency period on Friday, there were a bunch of good moves that were made, and we really wanted to try to provide an update there. We haven't had a chance to talk hockey, so hopefully this will be a really good start to, a couple of different events as we kind of move forward here. Like, the plan would be to try to do something on a semi-regular basis with a mixture of both front office personnel and then some players. So that way, when we do get underway for the 2021 season, we'll have an idea as to what the team might look like, and move from there. But I hope all of you guys are doing well. I hope all of you guys are staying safe. Ryan, I'm wide open for you to start if you want.
So to begin, this is a question asked by Steve Martin, as well as a number of our season ticket holders that I would not be able to name all of them if I went back and read through the question form that we had over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours. But first and foremost, we know that it's still a very, very fluid situation, Nate, but what is the talk at the American Hockey League level as to a timetable for a regular season?
Yeah, so I know that a lot of you guys had seen the day where we pushed to December 4th. That was, at the end of July. At the time, we were looking at what, the current situation was like, and it was really apparent that no teams really essentially across the league were going to be able to have fans in buildings by the start of October. So, we as a board made a decision to push till at least December 4th, and that was, kind of in line with what we were hearing on the NHL side. Obviously, we were hoping that things were going to progress a bit further and that we would be able to get going on December 4th. Honestly, it's not looking promising, mainly because of, we're waiting for the ability to be able to get fans into the arena. And, unfortunately right now, it's a bit out of our control. The state of Massachusetts has restrictions on things, and that's going to prevent us at this point to be able to open December 4th. But it's like that in essentially every other market across the American Hockey League at this point. So, we've heard we've had some initial discussions with the American Hockey League board, but there has been nothing formal as of now. I'm sure that people have heard or read, some of the stuff that's coming out about a potential push to, I know Gary Bettman had mentioned January 1st, but our league still hasn't made a decision on what that looks like. We've had preliminary conversations around an early February start, but there's nothing been set in stone. Like, we're hoping to get back together as a board here at the end of October or the first week of November to hopefully get some more concrete information. But as of now, that's kind of where we're at, to be quite honest. And a lot of it obviously being driven by what we're able to do. I think it's a big challenge on the business side for us to try to play games without fans in the arena. Obviously, fans drive everything that we do, and the support there drives everything that we do on the business side. And so, that's the same for every team. And so, the hope is that if we do push back a little bit further, that we'd be able to get in a full season. And that's what we're still hoping up for is, to maybe just push the timelines back a little bit. But we still don't know exactly what that'll look like. And we're hopeful, obviously. I'm trying to stay as positive as possible. We were hoping we would have a lot, a better situation across the country at this point, but it hasn't progressed nearly as much as we would have liked at this point.
Now, we know that off of the restrictions that are in place in the state of Massachusetts, and as you said, in so many places throughout this country and even up in Canada as well, the next thing a lot of people who think out in advance, which is very common these days to think ahead to when times will be normal again, but Ronald Saltarelli and a couple of other season ticket members also put this question forward for you, Nate. What happens for season ticket members in the event that fans are not going to be able to attend games? If there is a situation where the American Hockey League were to play in a limited or in a no fan capacity?
Well, we haven't really got to that point yet. I mean, that would be real challenge to host games without fans. We've done quite a bit of legwork on our end behind the scenes to, potentially plan for that. But it's going to be a real challenge on the business front to host games without fans. We're doing everything we can to try to get fans in the arena. We've been really proactive on the business side. We've been in touch with essentially every other major pro league across the country in terms of what they're doing. We've been in touch with a lot of the NFL teams that have started to host some fans in terms of what that looks like for them and trying to figure out what that will look like. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to get approval from the state of Massachusetts, and we have to do it safely. I think at the end of the day, everything that we're trying to do is to do it the right way and to make sure that people are safe. And as of now, there isn't a ton of clarity on that front. And so, it's still quite up in the air. I think we're pushing really hard to just try to do as much as we can to get fans in the arena.
And what would be a contingency plan for these fans in the event that they can't come into the building this season? They have plans with the Thunderbirds, whether it's a full season, a partial season membership. Will there be a chance for there to be a rollover into a 21-22 season scenario?
Yeah, so I think we've built up quite a bit of equity, I would hope, with our group here. And what happened at the end of March, the fan base really stepped up and supported our organization, and they did so in droves, which it's a scary thing to deal with, obviously, when your season gets cut short and you're not expecting that. And just about every single person stepped up to the plate and either donated their tickets back to the foundation or rolled it over into the upcoming year. And we haven't come up with concrete plans, but I think you guys can have faith in the fact that we're going to do the right thing by everybody. Anybody that's got their deposits down on tickets, it would obviously continue forward to the next season, and no one would lose their seats or anything like that. But I don't want to even get into that point yet, because we're still so far away from that potentially being a possibility. There's still quite a bit of time, which I think we're really hopeful for. And that's why I think we're looking at the late winter, early spring as a start date, so that hopefully, even if we do have to open with a restricted capacity or a limited capacity, that we'll be able to get to a point at some point in the springtime where we would be able to welcome fans. So, there's still so much to be determined, and a lot of it is out of our hands. But I think people can feel good about the fact that we're going to be there to do whatever whatever our fans need them to do. If people need their money back now and they're going through a rough time, we've never been an organization that would dig our heels in and say, no, we're not going to do that. I think we've set a precedent at the beginning that, like we want to show the support of our fans just like they've done to us, and we're willing and willing to do whatever it would take to make that happen.
The when of it is still in question, obviously, with when we will see hockey on the ice again. But the great thing about all this is we know that there will, at some point, be hockey again. I want to get Kevin McDonald into the conversation now because a lot of our fans, right before the pause, received the news that the Thunderbirds were going to now be partnered up with the St. Louis Blues, the 2019 Stanley Cup champions, on a 5-year affiliation agreement. And Kevin, first thing I want to ask you after we say welcome to Springfield is what made the Springfield AHL market an attraction to the St. Louis Blues in the aftermath of San Antonio being sold in terms of it being a good fit for the next move for the organization?
Well, thank you, Ryan, for welcoming me. I'm very excited to be part of the Springfield Thunderbirds family. I think in our group, from our owner, Tom Stillman, General Manager Doug Armstrong, President Chris Zimmerman, and Steve Chapman, who was one of the guys influential in putting the deal together. From the top down, the Blues is, just super excited to be part of the Springfield and what they have going on. And, really what attracted us is it's a great market. I mean, it's been there almost 100 years. I think since Paul and Nate have come in, the excitement has really grown. Promotions like the Isotopes jerseys behind you, like I was in there for that. I've been scouting in that building for 25 years. And, Robbie DeMaio, who's, part of the Blues executive team, called the Cup there in 89-90. And it's had a long history. It's an exciting market. I think now with the casino in town, all the renovations that have been done in the building, it's a great place for our prospects to play. And I think, the biggest change for us, honestly, will be, since going back to the Worcester days, we went from Worcester to Peoria, Illinois, then to Chicago, then to San Antonio. So we were flying. Like now we'll be part of the bus league again. It'll be the opposite. In San Antonio, we only had one bus trip to Texas Stars and everything else was a flight. Now everything will be a bus and we'll have one flight. So I think Springfield has a lot to offer, and I'm really excited just to roll up our sleeves and get the hockey going, drop the puck, and try and compete on the ice.
Nate, I know you and Kevin have had a lot of chances to kind of get together and kind of discuss what the layout of the new season is going to look like, but every affiliation is a two-way street. What made St. Louis an attractive option to the ownership group here in Springfield?
Well, there had been initial conversations when we first took over the franchise, and it didn't necessarily pan out. I think we've made a real commitment to winning here in Springfield. That's something that we've talked about from the very beginning. Our ownership, led by Paul Pignelli, is really interested in that, obviously. And you don't get a better pedigree than the Blues and what they've been able to do at the NHL level, but also at the AHL level in terms of their development of players. So, I think the philosophies really went hand in hand, and that was a really good thing when we were going through the process. Obviously, you can't guarantee winning at our level, and that's not what we would ever expect. But I think St. Louis does understand the importance of winning, developing players in a winning environment, and that's what we're all about too. We want to try to create an environment here at the Mass Mutual Center to hopefully help these guys develop and not only win on the ice here in Springfield, but hopefully get a chance to develop and get up to the next level and continue their careers. So for us, it was important too. Like I think we wanted to make a statement. Long-term commitment was something that we really wanted to make sure that the market here understood that the ownership is invested in the long term. And that was something that St. Louis was also interested in doing, and it ended up working out great. And we're really excited about it. Unfortunately, the deal was signed like a week before all this happened, so none of the fun stuff that we normally would do in an off season has been able to happen. But that's why we're trying to do this kind of stuff to just kick it off, and then hopefully when we're able to invite people in, we can do some of that fun stuff and get back to some of that.
Now, Kevin, as it pertains to player development, different NHL franchises have different philosophies when it comes to the best ways to develop players to their ultimate goal of reaching the National Hockey League and then in turn winning a Stanley Cup. When it comes to the St. Louis Blues mindset in terms of development at the American Hockey League level, how would you describe what the organization's overall thought process and philosophy would be in terms of getting these players ready for that next level?
Yeah, well, our philosophy is to win and develop at the same time, and it's not always easy, but we definitely feel that winning and developing those winning habits, playing important rounds in the playoffs, playing important games at the end of the year, are crucial to development. I mean, when the Blues won the Stanley Cup in Game 7, they had 9 players in the lineup that had developed through the American Hockey League, and that's the goal. And it doesn't always work out that way, as you know. Like in San Antonio, the last 2 years we were out of the playoff mix, but we'll never lose the focus on developing players. But I would say, we really don't favor one over the other. It's, in a regular season, it's a long, long season, so it balances out. And we want to be fair to the guys that are playing well, and we also want to give our prospects a chance to play. And we have Tim Taylor that heads up our player development staff, and then Springfield fans will be familiar with Glenn Wesley, who's also on our player development team, and will spend a lot of time in Springfield, both guys in and out. And, that's an important part of our development too. And everything's a conversation. Like it's a constant everyday thing between, Doug and myself and the Springfield coaches and player development to try and get everybody on the same page. But winning's a crucial aspect.
We're going to take a deeper dive into some of the free agent signings and the trades that have occurred with the Blues and in turn trickle down effect to the American Hockey League a little bit later on. But one question, and we want to encourage fans, as you're watching this live as well, feel free to comment in the box below with any questions you may have for Nate or for Kevin as it pertains to the business or in terms of the St. Louis Blues Springfield Thunderbirds hockey side of things. And we will try to get to as many of those as we can throughout the course of this town hall. But one thing that one of our ticket members, Matt A., brought up, and was also something that I had written down on my list of questions for you, Kevin, is to a certain degree, the player development piece, particularly for young prospects and rookies in the American League level. Different teams have different mindsets and different budgets for bringing in veteran players on AHL contracts and how they kind of usher in leadership for the new wave of young players. What is the Blues and in turn now Thunderbirds mindset going to be in terms of how veterans can help the young players progress to that next level?
Well, I think it's something that changes every year, and it depends on the mix that you have. I think if you look at our last few captains at the American League level, Jordan Nolan and Chris Butler, both guys that have won Stanley Cups and, been instrumental in helping our younger players find their footing. Like, the American Hockey League is a very, very difficult league to play in. It's so highly competitive. You're playing against the best of the best. You could take anybody from our lineup on any given night and they could go to the NHL and play well. That's how close the talent gap is from the NHL and AHL. So I guess it fits back into the first thing we talked about, where it's the winning and development, where, those guys want to get to the NHL too. And it's just trying to find the right people, like the Chris Butlers and Jordan Nolans. And, I think we've done that this summer or off season, where guys like Steve Santini is on a 2-way contract and Curtis McKenzie's on a 2-way contract and Sam Annis is on a 2-way contract. And, we're going to do everything in our power to get them to the NHL if they get assigned to the American League. And I have a lot of confidence that they're going to help, the younger guys, in every way adjust to being a pro. We're going to have at least 7 rookies on our roster. It's going to be the youngest team we've had probably in over 10 years. So having these guys that set a good example in the weight room, nutrition-wise, leadership-wise in the room, it's important because, when you're 20 years old and all of a sudden you're playing against, guys that have played a couple hundred NHL games, they're going to be looking for advice and, they're going to need that comforting voice sometimes just to say, kid, you're on the right track. Just keep going. Or, if the coach is hard on him one day, to remind them, hey, you'll bounce back. There's a game again tomorrow night. They just put that one behind you. So it's always going to be an important part of the American Hockey League is having those strong veteran voices. And, it's funny because now these guys aren't old. I mean, you talk about Steve Santini as a veteran voice, and he's 25 years old himself.
Yeah, and another important voice on any American Hockey League team is that of the coaching staff. And what T-Birds fans are quickly realizing is there's going to be a brand new coaching staff in the city of Springfield come the 2020-2021 season. Drew Bannister has been the head coach for the last 2 seasons with the St. Louis Blues American Hockey League affiliate in San Antonio. Very accomplished defenseman at both the American and National Hockey League level in his playing career. Can you describe Drew's coaching style and what are the defining assets of Drew Bannister?
Well, I think, the one thing with Drew, I think he looks at the game probably in a little bit more modern way, where, he thrives on some puck possession. He's not afraid to let the skilled players use their skill set, especially in the offensive zone and in the right areas. And in turn, that can lead to an exciting brand of hockey because, we don't want the skilled players dumping the puck in at the offensive blue line. We want skilled players making plays and trying to score goals. So, I mean, Drew's been around and his record at the Ontario Hockey League is unbelievable. And, we're really fortunate to have a guy like Jim Johnson on the staff that's the associate coach and will run the defense and the penalty killing and played in the NHL a long time himself, coached in the NHL a long time himself. And, Daniel Kachuk was the top 10 draft pick. And, all these guys are so familiar with the area. I mean, Drew was on the Hartford team that won the Calder Cup in 2000. And, Daniel himself played a long time in the American Hockey League. So, I know the staff, they're just chomping at the bit. I mean, they would walk there today. If I called them tonight and said, great news, we got the schedule, you got to be in town. And, they got their bags packed and, they're ready to go.
How's the excitement level been for the coaching staff? I don't know how much they've had a chance to hear on the periphery of just what the game atmosphere inside the Mass Mutual Center has become over the course of the last 4 seasons. Has there been any kind of thinking forward and daydreaming to what it's going to be like to have that?
I think, the hockey world's a small world, right? So everybody knows somebody that, played, coached in Springfield or, was in the division. So I know everybody's calling their buddies and they're trying to figure it out. And, no, they're exciting. I mean, I don't know how many sellouts Nate and his staff put together last year, but I know it was most likely double digits. And, I'm thankful that when I scout, I have the press box because I know that, the building's full. So if you're in the seat, you're jumping from seat to seat as people come in. So, as coaches, I think, and the players especially, you thrive in that atmosphere. You want to fill a full building. You want a noisy building. You want a market that cares about winning. So, as an entire organization, from myself down to coaches, players, trainers, there's just a lot of excitement. And, everybody's just waiting for the bell to ring. And everybody's ready to go and training hard. And, their excitement level's building, even though we're still obviously in a waiting room.
Let's take a bite into some of these player signings. You alluded to a couple of them earlier. I think the name that probably caught the most people's eyes locally is that of Sam Annis, a young man who played collegiately at a very high level at Quinnipiac, just down the road in Hampton, Connecticut, and a young man who, at the time of the pause, led the American Hockey League with 70 points last season, playing on a line with the AHL's leading goal scorer, Jerry Mayhew. He is a guy who, if you put him next to me, you look at a young man who's around the same size, but has a skill set that around the league has had people buzzing. What is the St. Louis Blues' expectation for Sam Annis' future?
Well, we're so excited to have Sam in the fold. I had some great conversations both with Sam and his agent, and It was an interesting day because Sam's teammate Devin Tays, who subsequently got married on the day of free agency that I was talking to Sam. So, he after the wedding and before the reception, we would talk. And but like you said, I mean, our weakness last year at the American League level was the ability to score, generate goals. So to be able to bring in a guy with Sam's skill set, character, the guy leading the league in scoring, was phenomenal. And we signed Sam to a multi-year deal, so we couldn't be more excited to have him. And Sam's never played an NHL game, which is unique. I mean, you think a guy that's led the entire American League in scoring at some point, and he's been a 4-year pro, would have got that taste. So, with every player, it's a little bit different, but that's our goal with Sam is, you got to start with that first game, and that's what we got our sight on. And I know that's what Sam has his sight set on. And like you said, he's played at Quinnipiac. He's familiar with the New England environment. And, he was happy to come back to New England himself.
Now, for Sam Annis, again, you mentioned veteran, 4-year pro, who's still only 25, 26 years old. Couple that with the veteran signing of Curtis McKenzie, who is nearing age 30, but has 4 20-goal seasons at the American League level under his belt, has NHL experience under his belt, and perhaps most notably, has a Calder Cup championship in his back pocket from his days with the Texas Stars in 2014. What kind of leadership role do you envision for Curtis McKenzie, if that is indeed the case of a player who has the accolades that Curtis has been able to accrue over his career?
Yeah, and I think it's important with all these players, like, you want them to go on the NHL training camp and figure out where they slot in. And I'm sure Curtis is training with the mindset to make the NHL team and play in the NHL. And he's been around long enough to know that, sometimes you can't control that. And like I said, with each player, the goal's different. And Curtis is sort of at the other end of it, where he's actually played 99 career NHL games. So we want to make sure we get Curtis to 100. And I think he wants to be in a place where, he feels like he can earn that chance. And, that was one of the things that we talked about and was important to him. And I think he probably plays the most, like a prototypical Blue of the guys that we signed. And honestly, that's why we signed him. Like, you're always, it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle on free agency. You're trying to fill different roles. And, on Sam's side, we added the skill. And, on Curtis's side, we sort of added that, bruising power forward that, can play a solid two-way, game that also translates, to the NHL level as well.
Here's an interesting question that we got on the fan questionnaire the other day from Donald Crunk. And this is one that I know, Nate, growing up watching Springfield Falcons games, it's easy for fans to cheer for the jersey, but we also develop long-term affections for players themselves and getting to know them and getting to know their game. What players on this roster, and this is obviously a hard thing to project over the course of 5 years so far in the affiliation between the Blues and the Thunderbirds, but what new players will they see on the ice that will be easy to notice in the way they play and are the quote-unquote fan favorite candidates?
Well, that's a great question. I think probably one of the first guys that comes to mind is a guy that's played in the division before, so they've watched him play, and that's Nathan Walker, who obviously played for a long time in Hershey, and last year was his first year in the Blues organization, and and he got to the NHL with us too, which was great. He was a call up, and then unfortunately for Nathan, he got hurt and had surgery, and missed most of the second half of the year. But Nathan is one of the fastest players, in the American Hockey League. So, that would be a guy certainly that stands out. I think, the other player that we haven't talked about yet that we signed in free agency is John Gillies. I think a 6'6" goaltender. He's got a lot of family background in New Hampshire and Maine. He won a college national championship at Providence College. And that's a guy that we're trying to support and get back to the NHL as quickly as possible. And so I think those are a couple guys that I think that'll jump out to the fans right away.
You mentioned John Gillies, and you mentioned the fact that he has NHL experience and has played a ton of American Hockey League minutes, especially in the last couple of seasons. Is the anticipation that he would get the lion's share of games in net at the American League level, assuming that he would be in the discussion for number 3 in the organizational depth chart?
Yeah, I mean, I think, that we probably don't do as much slotting as people think we do. Really, a lot of it's up to the players and how they play. And this goes back to, the same thing I talked about with other players with John. I mean, John wants to play in the NHL, and he'll put on the work boots in the American League and, do his best every night. But, he's got his sights on the NHL. And honestly, that's one of the things that we liked when we signed him and when we talked to him. When we sort of looked at all the available free agents on the goaltending side, and there's probably never been an off season in the history that I can remember of goaltender movement at the NHL and AHL level, or the potential of it. So, when I talk about a jigsaw puzzle, I mean, we probably talked about, it felt like close to 100 guys at one point of, at least a small touch on, does this guy fit in? Does that guy fit in? And I would say at the end of the day, we probably, to make the decision, reverse course. And instead of looking at the players individually, we looked at what do we want as a guy to either compete with Ville Husso as the number 2, or be that sort of first call-up type of guy. And we wanted a guy with NHL experience. We wanted a guy with a lot of AHL experience. We wanted a guy with burning desire to get to the NHL. And probably the biggest thing we were looking for was, we're probably, for lack of better words, we were looking for the next Jordan Binnington. Like, who had the most potential that we could develop and really get going in the right direction. But if he plays his best game, he's got a potential to be a number 1 in the NHL, not even a number 2. And so once we did that, John sort of quickly slid to the top of the list, and it was a guy that we zeroed in on, and a guy that we're excited to have in our organization, and another guy that'll slug it out in training camp to see where he slots in.
Kevin, we'll give you a minute to get a little bit of a breather. I'll go back to Nate here for a second. We have a question that came in, a similar question from 2 different fans of ours, Terry Aldrich and Gene Canosa Albano. We're talking so much about these new players, and everyone's excited to have a chance to see these guys up close, face to face. But given the way the world is these days, we don't know what a timetable for that is going to look like. So if we get to a point where players are starting to make their way to Springfield, will there be a chance for us? And I think tonight what we're seeing right now is certainly a means of doing that. What ways virtually will there be for our fans to get a chance to see these guys first?
Well, I think, obviously the virtual means will be something that we're going to really try to plan on here over the next couple of months in advance of, being able to at least welcome people down to the arena and to start having some interactions. I think this year is going to look just completely different from all aspects unless we have a lot of things change here in very short term. But I think Gene and who was the other person? Terry. I think we've set a precedent that we're gonna continue to do the stuff that we've always done very, very well, giving you guys the opportunity to get up close and personal with some of our players and get a chance to follow their journey and get a chance to meet them. And we just got to make sure that we're doing things the right way. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I think that's really important to me. That's really important to our ownership. We've got to keep our players safe. That's obviously really top concern, but we also have to keep our fans safe. And unfortunately right now, we're not in a position to be able to do in-person events. We've tossed around ideas. I've been wanting to do something all summer. It's completely opposite of what we've done. hosted our yard goats games in the off season, and we had events where we can get together as a group, and our ticket pickups and our training camp watch parties, all the stuff that we do. It's been really challenging for me to sit back and not do a lot of that. I know that we've really set a good precedent on some of that stuff, but we've got to try to do things the right way. We even think of like, hey, do we do a drive-through, trick or treating? Do we do different things like that? And at the end of the day, it comes down to, is it worth it to potentially have something happen in this environment? And we're trying to be responsible. Like, we're trying to do our part, here as part of our community. And I don't want to put anybody in harm's way. I think that's my biggest concern. And so, I think as this progresses and we have a better idea as to what this is going to look like, and as we start to get out of this, we're going to get back to doing all the things that we normally do very, very well. I can't give you a specific timeline as to when that might be, but we're going to do everything in our power to be able to try to get back to some type of normalcy sooner rather than later.
When we do reach that point, we mentioned the marquee additions from Annis and McKenzie to Gillies on the back end of things, but there's another name up front who the Blues recently re-signed, a name that a lot of people in the Springfield market especially are going to be very familiar with, the last name, shall we say. Nolan Stevens, re-signed by the St. Louis Blues organization. If you look at his photo and you see a resemblance, you will see one to his father, John, who, of course, coached in the Stanley Cup final this year with the Dallas Stars as an assistant, has won Stanley Cups in his past, and was for a long time one of the best defensemen in the American Hockey League. His son Nolan is a forward, though, Kevin McDonald. And how much, if there is a comparison that can be made to his father, what is it? And what can the fans expect to see out of another Stevens playing some American Hockey League action in Springfield?
Yeah, well, Nolan certainly has good bloodlines, that's for sure. Like you said, different positions, but I think the similarity is probably the student of the game and the will to get better, which are important things. And I think Nolan, after his first year pro, had a great summer of training, and it led to an excellent second year pro for him. I mean, Nolan was second on the team in assists, fourth in points. I sort of refer to him as a Swiss Army knife. He's one of the few guys on our team that can play all three forward positions. He's used on the power play. He's used on the penalty kill. He plays if we're up a goal, down a goal. So just such a versatile player for our coaching staff to employ, and somebody that will have an expanded role even more this year than he had last year. So, Springfield fans will be excited with the name, and they'll be excited with the results from him on the ice as well, just like his dad.
It's amazing how much college hockey blood there is in the players that have been signed to contracts, whether it's at the National Hockey League or American Hockey League level. We mentioned earlier Steve Santini, Boston College. I'd be remiss not to mention Northeastern University for Nolan Stevens, which, as we here on this panel know, there are some Northeastern bloodlines here on this panel as well. But going back to Santini for a minute, for fans who, and it's a natural instinct for fans to look for statistics, and numbers. Numbers are not going to jump off the page when it comes to a Steve Santini, but arguably it's the intangible things you don't see in the box score that make him such a valuable commodity, and which has made him an NHL player in his past, and kind of speak to what makes Steve Santini such a useful piece on the back end.
Well, he's that rock. He's the stay-at-home defensive defenseman that the goaltenders love, that the fans will grow to love, but also that you can put a more offensive-minded player with him, and it becomes a good pairing and a good partnership. And Steve, for a young kid, he's actually played more NHL games than American League games. And like I said, it's another guy that we really want to work hard. I think he plays like a Blue. Our coaching staff has some familiarity with him from his, our NHL coaching staff from his time, in the NHL, which was mostly New Jersey. And then our Springfield coaching staff has a lot of familiarity with him because he played in Milwaukee all last season. So Steve's a guy that I've watched play for a long time, since his freshman year at Boston College, and then with Binghamton in New Jersey, and with Milwaukee. And I think he's going to be a great fit if he's in the American League, and certainly a guy that, can still go play years and years in the NHL. And, it was really great to get to know him and talk to him. And the only bad thing, when I got off the phone with my wife, I was like, boy, I was the dumbest guy on that phone call by a long shot. I know his parents, even though he got a full scholarship, he got his money's worth out of his college education. So, but a great kid, and I think that leadership and intelligence, if he's in Springfield, it's going to be phenomenal for our young kids, especially. A Tyler Tucker turning pro at age 20, to be able to absorb the lessons that Steve Santini will have to offer.
Going back to Nate for a moment here, we're starting to see some questions on the Facebook comment feed, and fans, feel free to keep firing those in there. Again, we'll try to get to as many unique ones as we can. But we're having a number of season ticket holders who are wondering what to expect if fans are allowed at games this season. What can you tell them about what a Mass Mutual Center seating map could potentially look like under a limited capacity setting, as well as what would happen with ticket packages and things of that nature?
Yeah, nothing's been set in stone 100% yet. We're still hopeful that we're going to be able to get at least 50%, if not more, capacity into the arena. If that's not the case, we've done a ton of modeling to date. Things might look a little different. It might be out of whack, and that's just going to be how it might have to be in the springtime. If you take a look at what the NFL teams that are doing that are in limited capacity situations, it comes down to having to mark seats off and make sure that people are distancing themselves. And, we're going to have requirements that the state's, putting forward as well. So, making sure that we have, potentially timed entry or, creating other entrances. I mean, as all of you guys know, our box office gets extremely tight on a game night, and that's usually our only main entrance. We've been working with the building and the facility and MGM on opening other exits that would then serve as entrances. So essentially, if your seats were in a certain section, you would be given a specific entrance to come in, a specific time to come in. And, you would be getting temperature checked at the very least at the door. And we're really investigating things that, have a potential for spread, right? So normally fans would be getting hard stock tickets. We would probably be moving to a more digital format for the upcoming year, and it might be something that we would consider moving forward. But with hard tickets and passing tickets, and we really want to try to limit exposure as much as possible. But none of that has been fully determined because we're really waiting for the state on a lot of this stuff. We've tried to be proactive as possible, so that way, if we're given the green light, we can flip a switch and we can give all of you the information that we'll have. But it's gonna be a challenge if we're in a 6-foot distancing capacity. People know we've got 6,800 seats in our arena, and 6-foot distancing in an arena that is 100% concrete doesn't give you much opportunity to move seats or to do different things. And so, for a short period of time, there may be a situation where you might not be able to get your exact seat. And a lot of the fans in center ice seating, particularly, are really close together. So what we would do, though, is obviously want to take care of all of our season ticket members and all of our package holders. If it is a situation like that, we would provide opportunity for you all to have the same seat for every single game. It may not be the one that you're accustomed to, but you'll have the ability before anybody else to get your seat and seats that were essentially picked. I don't know if people are necessarily following the buzzword in the industry lately has been pods. So these NFL teams that have had to go through, they're essentially creating pods of seats that fans would then have to then choose. And essentially the money that has been put down on your tickets for now would essentially become a bank that would then be able to be used to get tickets for whatever games you would want to get, and you would have first opportunity. But again, we haven't necessarily locked any of that stuff in at this very moment. We're still hopeful that we're going to be able to fill a building and have a full season. But if that doesn't happen, obviously we want to do the right thing by everybody. And I can give you guys the assurance that we've been talking every single possible scenario through not only with our own group internally here, but with our building and with the state, and trying to do the right thing. Like this is a really hard world to navigate. It throws everything that we do out the window, and it's challenging. It's challenging to try to figure out, and it's very stressful for me personally to try to figure out, what the year is going to look like and the plan and do all that stuff without really knowing anything. And I think we've kind of shown that we've done a really good job of, being able to control things, and we've had very, we've had very, like our promos and themes have been fantastic, and we've been able to do all that stuff. It's a challenge not being able to do some of that creative stuff and start to plan some of that. But we're really trying to figure out the best way to just get the fans back in the building and do it the right way, in a world that we're not used to, right? So it's been extremely challenging, honestly, to try to navigate some of this stuff. And as the time goes on, like we're hoping that we're going to get more information. And unfortunately, again, some of it's still up in the air.
Wanted to make sure that we had a chance for you to address that, Nate. But now, going back to Kevin for a second, I couldn't help but notice something you alluded to in your description about Steven Santini, about mentioning that there was an ability potentially to put a very offensive-minded defenseman opposite Steve on his defense partnership. And the name that jumps off the page, and a lot of folks who follow college hockey and follow Blues prospects are well aware of what Scott Prunovich did in his 3-year career at the University of Minnesota Duluth, was over a point a game as a defenseman, which is hard to do at any level as a defender these days. And for his entire college career, almost a point a game defensively. So in your mind, when you're starting to piece together on paper, and of course a team roster and a team depth chart on paper can look a lot different from what happens in person on the ice itself, is that kind of the mindset of what went into bringing in Steve Santini, knowing that Scott Prunovich is waiting in the wings for his shot professionally?
Well, not as much, I think, with Scott. Like I think a guy like Scott, when he wins the Hobie Baker Award, and then signs his NHL contract, which Scott signed a future contract, so he actually wasn't eligible to go into the bubble or play any game with St. Louis. So his contract will, start this season whenever it starts. I think a guy like that, he's got his sights fixated on the NHL. If you go over the list, I mean, the last 6 Hobie Baker Award winners have all become full-time good NHL players. Includes guys like Jack Eichel and Cale Makar from UMass. So with Scott, like we don't even discuss him at the American League level. Like that's a guy that Doug and Craig Berube and those guys will get their hands on in the NHL, which they really didn't get him for very long. He came in for maybe a week of practice before we left for the bubble. And then we'll see where he slots in. Certainly, if he ever ended up in the American Hockey League, Scott's a dynamic player wherever he plays. He's got a dynamic skill set that everybody in the rink knows when he's on the ice, and his ability to control the puck and change the game, and create chances for his teammates is high end. And what he accomplished at Minnesota Duluth, to being recognized with the Hobie Baker, he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Kevin, you mentioned early on in this discussion that being based in New England, as you have been for the Blues organization for well over the past 2 decades, you've had a chance to scout the Atlantic Division, specifically in the Mass Mutual Center and in the other buildings in this region. And for the Blues AHL affiliation, moving from the Western Conference to the Eastern Conference, I know the league is so, like you say, the talent margin and the consistently high level of play is so present in both conferences. But what have you seen about the Atlantic Division over your time scouting that will make it a different and unique challenge for your AHL affiliates to try to navigate?
Well, it'll be a challenge, all right. You just got to go back to, the Charlotte Checkers and the team that, won the Calder Cup, the last one that was awarded. And then, you look at the Providence Bruins that I think that had the best winning record, winning percentage in the entire American League, or at least in the East, and what Lehigh Valley's done, and Wilkes-Barre has been just such a consistent winner, really since the first day they came in the league. Hartford certainly last year was one of the top teams in the league. So, we know that Bridgeport's going to be a great rivalry. So, we're excited about that. I think we get to play the teams in our division a little bit more than we did in the West, where we bounced around a little bit. But, the West was highly competitive, and this feels like it's going to be even worse on the competitive side. But you know what? That's what makes it great for the players. Like, to get to the highest level, you got to compete against the best, and you got to perform against the best. You got to outperform those guys. I mean, that's your measuring stick. I mean, that young team that Charlotte, put on the ice, like those guys are going to be playing in the NHL for 20 years, and so if you can, and it's good scouting wise. I mean. I know, if you're going in there to find talent, those guys, if you can perform against the best teams in the league night in, night out, those are the guys that you want in your organization, and those are the guys that can help the NHL.
Couple final questions for you, Kevin, before we wrap things up. Number one, obviously, we were not going to be able to go through every single prospect in the St. Louis Blues system over the course of this first town hall, but of the roster players or potential roster players that we have not had a chance to mention yet, who is one that fans in Springfield should probably keep their eyes peeled for in terms of taking next steps towards NHL futures in their development?
Well, I think Klim Kostin. Klim was a first-round pick, and he was drafted as an 18-year-old and then immediately turned pro, which, as you know, almost never happens. It's so unique that, Klim didn't turn 21 until after the pause. So, he's played his 3 full years in the American League as an 18, a 19, and a 20-year-old. And, last year he had 30 points in 48 games. He had 59 penalty minutes. He's, 6'3", 215, power forward, has 60 penalty minutes, plays with some jam. And, he's a guy, he's a first-round pick that the Blues are very excited about developing and turning into a long-time NHL player.
Now for the hard-hitting question for you, Kevin, to wrap up your first town hall and your first kind of introduction to the Springfield hockey fan base. And this is a question, and this is something that undoubtedly is going to be brought up. Springfield has not had a playoff American Hockey League team since 2013, 2014. What is it going to take for this group, led by Drew Bannister, to get there?
Yeah, I mean, that's the excitement. I mean, we certainly want to be the team that brings playoff hockey back to Springfield, and we want to do it immediately. That was certainly in the back of my mind, as you're rattling around talking with these guys. And, I think one of the most exciting things for me is I think because of the pause, we spent a great deal of time on the list. And, it was the pro scouting staff, it was the American Hockey League coaching staff, but we also got analytics more involved. We got the video staff more involved. And I really loved our list and what we did. And, there was only one player that we talked to that didn't sign with us. Everybody else that we talked to, we could sell them on, what a great, marriage St. Louis and Springfield are going to be, and that we want them to be a part of that. And certainly winning games and playing in the playoffs are a part of that. And, like I said, earlier, like we're just, our organization is so excited. I think what Paul and Nate have established in a short time is phenomenal. And, I'm very thankful to the previous owners and guys like Bruce Landon that have been, more than instrumental in keeping Springfield being part of the heartbeat of the American Hockey League for so long. And, we love the pressure. We know there's pressure to win. And, we can't shy away from it, and we're looking forward to the puck dropping, and we know our division's going to be highly competitive. But we think we're up for the challenge, and we're excited for the challenge.
And fans in our area certainly know so many great rivalries in the Atlantic, and the Blues joining Springfield will become part of that right in the heat of it all. Nate, before we bid adieu to everybody on this Thursday evening, want to give you a chance to give some final remarks, as well as how folks can stay in touch with everyone within the Thunderbirds organization as more answers hopefully come our way sooner than later.
Yeah, and as I said at the beginning, thanks Ryan. It's good seeing you. It's good talking. It's good talking T-Birds, not only the business, but to hear about what the Blues have done. It's an exciting time, and we're really excited to get the puck dropped and get back in the ice. We're back in the office. We've been trying to be really careful with that. Our office is not fully open right now, but we're here to answer any questions. We're here to talk. If you need anything, obviously, you can reach out through the office in our 413-739-GOAL, or reach out to either myself or Todd or Matt or any of our group here if there's anything that you guys need in the immediate future. But the plan is to hopefully be able to do some of this stuff that we talked about, and to be able to get you guys in the know. We're hoping to be able to have a similar situation with Drew, our new coach, and then some of the new players, so that way all you guys can get a chance to meet some of these guys before we get on the ice and start our season here in the upcoming year. We were really looking forward to having our 5th anniversary season this season, to be underway at this point. And unfortunately, it hasn't gone that way to date, but when we have the ability to open the arena, we're going to celebrate like we've never celebrated before, and hopefully, get this building rocking again when it's safe to do so. So again, to all of our fans, thank you very much for your continued support, for your continued patience. We're chomping at the bit just as much as you guys. Trust me, it is. I miss seeing all of you guys at the rink. I miss talking to you guys. I miss the the excitement that we've been able to bring. And we're looking forward to being able to do that very, very soon. And you'll hear from us. I think that at the end of the day was something that I've been feeling internally, that it's about time that we did something like this. It's about time, and we felt like it was the right time. But I think now, hopefully, we'll be able to continue to do some of this, and it won't be such a long break before seeing you again and talking to you a bit more about T-Birds hockey. But again, appreciate the continued support, especially to all of our partners. I'm not sure if any of our partners are on, but everybody has really stepped up and been super supportive, and we really appreciate it. So thank you to everybody. Hopefully this was good. It was really good to hear a lot of the hockey stuff. I appreciate your time, Kevin. It's been great getting to know you, and looking forward to working with you here over the next few years, and hopefully for a long time into the future. So thanks again to everybody that's joined us today. And Ryan, you can finish it up.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said any of that better myself. Kevin, once again, welcome to the Springfield Thunderbirds family. We look forward to many more conversations like this in the future, and hopefully one day we're celebrating that playoff berth or more. So for Nate and for Kevin, Ryan Smith, your voice of the T-Birds, and one more shout out also to our friends at MGM Springfield for helping make these Thunderbird Thursday town halls possible. Stay tuned on Thunderbird social media, as like Nate alluded to, we'll be looking to have more things like this in the future, so just stay tuned across all of our social media platforms at Thunderbirds AHL. So for Nate and for Kevin, have a safe and happy rest of your Thursday night, and good health to all of you out there, and we hope to see you all at the rink soon.